Hey guys, I want to take a second to thank Comfort Pro. Since 2001, Comfort Pro has been helping customers stay comfortable where they live, work, and play. They stand behind their work with a 100% customer satisfaction guarantee. They have 24/7 emergency service, and if you mention the show, you receive a free watchdog maintenance plan for 1 year. Call Comfort Pro at 484-917-1803. 484-917-1803. That's Comfort Pro. This is going to be a good one, Hugo.
The Brad Weisman Show. Real people, real life, and everything in between.
So what do your kids think of this?
Oh, they are so embarrassed.
In order to be unstoppable, you simply don't give up. You get knocked down, you get back up again.
Where curiosity opens the door to genuine connection.
Men really struggle with their emotions. They really struggle with even understanding what's going on.
Unfiltered conversations with the people shaping our world.
What kind of show is this?
And there's red quilted leather all over the walls. There's a swing hanging from the ceiling.
I don't sweat you.
And now, your host, Brad Weisman.
All right. Gosh, these weeks just fly by. Hugo, do you have your microphone up there, buddy?
I got it now.
It was kind of hanging in the air over there. I was like, what is he doing? I thought maybe you got taller and you were hoping to reach that microphone.
Still a shouty.
That's good. That's good. We got a really awesome guest. Different story here. You know, and what's really interesting is I found him, I think, mostly through the Keller Williams channels, or I saw part of his story through there. And I know a lot of times we don't have that. We don't have somebody coming in here that's with Keller Williams or a realtor. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I'm one too. It is kind of interesting. But his story was so captivating. He was in a really bad accident with his family years ago. I'm going to say 19 years ago is what I think he told me. And he's here in the studio. We're lucky enough to have him here in the studio. His name is John Ulsh. John, how are you doing?
I am great. Thank you for having me. And yeah, we can call each other realtors.
We're allowed to do that, right? Yeah.
It's not so bad.
No.
We're not used car salesmen.
That's right. Yes. People curse at us, but that's okay. But no, you know, this story is amazing. And you know, I think anytime when you bring somebody in that there's this huge thing that happened in their life, we have to hear the story first, because I don't know if there's any way to go into anything else without hearing the story. So I know you've told it gazillions of times, but it is your story and I'd like to hear it.
Yeah. So I'm getting better and better at trying to take what is a long journey into a shorter, but I'll give you, we'll start with the details of the accident itself. It was December 1st of 2007. And it was the Saturday after a late Thanksgiving. So we were on a Thanksgiving break. I was with my wife at the time and my 8-year-old daughter and my 4-year-old son. And my 8-year-old daughter had a swim meet. And so I'm from Carlisle, outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Yeah. And this swim meet was about an hour south of Carlisle. So down 81, almost into the Maryland border. And so it was an early meet. So we were up early. I was a marathon runner at the time. And that morning, there was December 1st, snow on the ground. So same deal as around here. Not always snow, you know, in that early, but there was snowy morning. And I only remember because I had a 12-mile run that morning at 6 a.m. and it was a little hazardous out there trying to run. Yeah. And so the meet was early. So we got down there and my daughter was the one who was swimming. And so our son, we kind of bribed him and said, look, if you can behave yourself at this indoor swim meet, which, you know, are like Russian baths and hot and sticky. Yeah. And I said, look, we'll go get a Christmas tree, you know, when we're done, we'll go cut a tree down and bring it. So the meet was over before noon and it was a great meet. Our daughter was at 8 years old, the top of her age group in the 6 to 8, had won 4 blue ribbons. Everybody was leaving in a really positive attitude. And so we were going to get a Christmas tree. So when we pulled out, it was at a high school. James Buchanan High School is a public school down there. And instead of going the exact same direction that we came there, we turned right out of the parking lot instead of left. And so we're driving Route 16, which is a 55-mile undivided road. Very rural area, a lot of farmland around us. And so we're driving out to get onto 81 just from the opposite direction. We stopped by Mercersburg Academy, which is a private boarding school there, just to see holiday decorations, doing something. And as we're headed out to 81, out of the corner, we could see Whitetail Ski Area, which is a ski mountain, and they're blowing snow. And we were a skiing family, even with the 8 and 4-year-olds. And the last thing I remember is somebody saying, hey, they're blowing snow, we can go skiing soon. Car coming the other direction, crossed the center line at the very last second. And we went driver to driver, and the police report had the impact speed at 125 miles an hour.
Yeah, because you got to add the two together, right?
Yeah, and no skid marks on the road.
So it's basically you're hitting and stopping.
Yeah, yeah. So other driver in a car by himself, 22-year-old, engaged to be married with a 4-month-old baby, died instantly.
That's tough.
Yeah. The pictures of the car, which are in the book and on my website, you can't imagine that there were human beings in either of these cars. They're so crumpled and beat in. Everybody in the car, in my car, survived. So that's the quick jump. Like both my children, 8 and 4, my wife at the time, we are alive. We were all unconscious except for my daughter. My daughter was in the back passenger seat. And when the first responders got there, they actually found her crawling between the front seats, trying to get a cell phone, crying, "Daddy, don't die."
Oh, God.
And so, again, she was conscious.
And you're out. You're out.
I'm out. So my wife was on the front passenger side, unconscious. She ended up with broken hand, broken foot, laceration across her stomach from the lap belt. Everyone had broken collarbones. The seatbelts did what they were supposed to do, but 125 mile impact speed. My son was the second most injured. He was sitting behind me on the driver's side in a car seat, booster seat. And my chair came back and snapped his tibia in his left leg. He must have put his foot up.
Out of here. The seat came back.
Yeah, my seat came back into his leg.
Wow.
He'd also end up severing his bow from the seatbelt without an actual cut in his skin. So his leg was already set in the hospital when he started vomiting, and they scanned him and realized his bow was ruptured and he was septic, but it didn't actually cut his skin. So
that's wild. Never cut his skin, that it actually it did the work without it.
Yeah. And so like everyone else in my family had bad lacerations and stitches from the lap belt. I had the worst of it. Obviously we went driver to driver. The engine block collapsed onto my left foot. And like I was wearing a pair of Crocs because it was one of those deals where you got inside the swim meet, you could take off your socks and I was timing and so the Crocs were a perfect poolside thing. They literally pulled me out later, and the Crocs would still be under when they did the photos for the accident report. The Crocs were still stuck under the engine block. I'm 6'2", so when the engine block collapsed, it held there. That energy traveled up my left leg, shattered my pelvis 4.5 inches apart in the front, snapped the back of your pelvis. So like doctors would be like, it's like a lifesaver. It'll always break in half. Then it traveled up my back. So it split my tailbone long ways and then fractured L1 through L4, which are your 4 lowest vertebrae, just from the energy. Okay.
Jeez.
My spleen would rupture. My diaphragm ruptured, which caused my left lung to completely collapse. My right lung then partially collapsed. And I had, a ton of internal bleeding. The fact that I was a marathon runner, the fact that I was up 180 pounds and under 10% body fat and had, strong lungs, literally was one of the first things to save my life, because left lung completely collapsed, right lung partially collapsed. We're in a very rural area. I mean, the closest non-trauma hospital was Hagerstown, Maryland.
Yeah, I kind of know the area. I know there's not a lot going on.
Not down there. And so Penn State Medical Center, based out of Hershey, keeps a helicopter. They're the Nittany Lions, so they call their helicopters the Lifeline.
Yep.
And so they kept 2 of them. They kept one at the Hershey Medical Center, and then they actually kept one in my hometown of Carlisle. And it was there for the sole purpose of reaching into this part of Franklin County, this rural area down towards the Maryland border, because there was no medical there, right? So that helicopter was sent out for my son and I. We were transported to Hershey Medical Center. My daughter, because she was a child, was flown, even though she was conscious, was flown into Hagerstown Hospital. And then my wife was taken down by ambulance. So this was like 1:30 in the afternoon, when everything started happening. And, it took about an hour before I ever made it to Penn State to Hershey. So again, functioning.
Did you code at all during that? The day that you did? I mean, with all those injuries, you would think that a lot of times people will actually go and then they'll bring them back and go and bring them back.
A couple times. And so put it in 180 pounds at the time. I took 32 units of blood in the first 12 hours.
Oh my gosh.
I was just bleeding out. All the internal injuries, all the organs that had ruptured.
Well, I think what people forget, and they talk about this all the time with head-on or any kind of collision where you stop too soon, because you got to get rid of the energy.
Yeah,
that energy has to go somewhere. And what happens is a lot of times all your organs just slam in front of your body, and it just totals your organs.
So, on a side note to that, what was this? This is now information that's only been in the last few years that's been shared about me. Because again, jump ahead. I've had 45 surgeries since this accident. Last year was the first year I'd never had a major surgery since it happened in a year. But what we now know, so initially when all these like spleen rupture, diaphragm rupture, I have ended up having the lenses in my eyes replaced because of eye damage.
Get the heck out of here.
Later we'd find out my heart was damaged, and I was the only person they knew in the United States with a traumatic VSD, a hole between your right and left ventricle, like a child would be born with, but mine was caused by trauma. They would argue that you should have died. I mean, I was given less.
How in the world? I was given less than a
3% chance, and I spent 18 days on a coma. So
now, was that induced? They do it on purpose sometimes.
So by day 12, it was.
Yeah, because a lot of times they do it because you don't want to wake up.
I was on a ventilator and I couldn't breathe on my own.
Yeah.
But what we know now is back then they kept saying, well, this is all from the airbags. This is all from, the collision. What they now have determined is that it was all from literally the impact and the reverberation of that impact. We know this now because of the fact that soldiers don't have to be out under the bomb, or that high caliber bullet doesn't have to hit them in the head. Just going by their head and the reverberation will cause aneurysms. Everything that was damaged on me, my spleen, my diaphragm, my heart, my eyes, all hollow organs.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
they all ruptured from the reverberation of 125 impact speed.
Yeah.
For years, they just told me it was from the airbags, the steering wheel. That was what's caused all the internal.
Take a dodgeball and throw it against the wall. What does it do?
Yeah.
It goes boom.
Yeah. And so, so that's what they now know. But so I end up in the hospital. My son ends up spending 15 days in there.
Hey guys, if you're looking to buy or sell a house in Berks County or beyond, let me know. This is Brad Weisman from the Brad Weisman Show. You probably know I'm also a realtor, but I wanted to remind you, if you have any questions or you need anything, please give me a call, 484-256-5836. Thanks. Now, are you in the same hospital as he? No, he's probably in a children's hospital.
Penn State has a children's hospital.
Which is amazing,
so,
actually. Yeah.
So we're in the same, because we're all on trauma. So that evening of the accident, so December 1st, my daughter, who had been conscious the entire time, my wife, who became conscious in Hagerstown Hospital, were put in an ambulance and driven 2 hours up to Hershey because I was going to die.
Oh, geez.
And so they wanted to move the family there. So, I always say that, what my wife had to go through at the time versus what I went through. I was unconscious.
Yeah.
When I came out of my coma, everybody was home. My son was the longest he was there 15 days. She had to explain to my daughter that, everything's okay, but we're driving in an ambulance 2 hours to your dad because he's going to die.
Yeah. Right.
And so, a lot more going on there. But so all those internal injuries, putting my pelvis back together, dealing with my fractured vertebrae, dealing with my fractured foot, all that orthopedic work, that didn't start for a couple of days. Yeah. The first 3 days, they left me open with the idea that they just trying to stop this internal bleeding. That's why taking so much blood.
They obviously stopped it somehow.
Yeah, eventually by starting taking out, again, I don't have a spleen any longer. I still had my appendix at the time. Like anything they could take out.
That you don't need.
That I don't need.
You can't just start taking things out. We don't. But stuff that you don't need.
Yeah, but
and if it's bleeding, get rid of it.
Yeah, and a ventilator was the only way to keep my lungs inflated at the time. And so after 3 days, they're like, all right, we got to close this guy up because its chance of infection is always too high. So I was so swollen from all the platelet and all the blood transfers and all the medications they were using, they couldn't pull my abdominal muscles shut.
Oh, geez.
So they figured if this guy survives, we're going to have to go back. So they just pulled the fascia layer, like the top layer of my skin, closed.
For infection, get it together.
Stitched it shut with just big blue sutures, like the kind of stuff your grandfather would have had from open heart surgery. Just so I had the big tick marks and the big scar because it wasn't done by a plastic surgeon. And yeah, so they tried to get me off the coma or off the ventilator to take me off the coma. And so they tried at day 15. I couldn't breathe on my own, so they reventilated me. They tried day 17, still couldn't
do it.
Day 18, was able to breathe on my own. By that time, my family was back in Carlisle.
What do you remember? First thing you remember waking up? I'm sure you heard this question a million times, but what is it?
So it's funny. It's kind of funny. So there's two stories. What I remember first,
which is different than what people remember, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly. So I have like in my book, which I haven't talked to you, but I have a whole chapters on just the hallucinations, because all the drugs that they used to keep me in induced coma. I was 220 pounds at this point, because they have from my medical records, the bed would weigh me. I was 180 pounds when I went in.
Wow.
I was 220 pounds of fluid.
Yeah.
And inside all that fluid is all this drugs that they were using on me.
Oh,
to keep me in
yeah.
induced coma. I have the most crazy hallucinations.
No way.
But the very first thing I remember is waking up, sitting on crates of Gatorade with nurses, hooking me up to IVs and seeing all the different colors of Gatorade going around the top through these IVs, that I could feel myself collapsing out of these plastic containers as they drained themselves. And then like the nurses throwing buckets of urine out into the hall.
Oh my gosh.
And I couldn't keep my eyes open. And every time I would close my eyes, all I'd see is flashing skulls like strobe lights.
Yeah.
That's my first memory.
Now, do you have any of those, you hear people say that when they're in those situations that you saw bright lights, or you went to somewhere else and saw maybe family members, or saw people that seemed like they were saying, no, you're not coming up here yet, kind of thing. You're staying there.
I had one very, very real
near-death experience is it's what this is.
I have a memory of seeing myself in on a emergency room bed, and then walking outside at night in a construction site in mud and plastic, blowing around in the wind. And I remember walking up to the door of the hospital and trying to open it, and it wouldn't open. And all of a sudden I hear a voice saying my name, and I turn around, and it's my grandfather, who I'm named after. So my name is John Ulsh. He was John Ulsh, and was a much younger version of him, glasses, fedora hat. And I said, I can't get in. He said, it's okay. Your father's coming for you. This is my dad's dad. So of course I'm chills. Yeah. And so he goes to walk away, and I start to follow him, and he said, no, you stay here. They'll get you.
Wow.
And here's the crazy part. So I was paralyzed, so after I was in the hospital for 4 weeks, I was non-weight bearing. So I couldn't even go to rehab or home. I moved into a nursing home for 8 weeks to lay flat on my back.
Oh my gosh.
And so the very first time that I went back to Hershey Hospital, like I'd be transported back and forth from the nursing home for follow-up. I had 6 specialists at this point, and always by an ambulance, always by transport, laying in a gurney because I was non-weight bearing. The very first time I ever went back, and I never told anybody this story yet about seeing my grandfather. And so we're driving over to Hershey, and we're coming up to go to the back section where the appointments would be for specialists.
Dude, I think I know where you're going with this.
And all of a sudden,
don't even tell me it looked like what you saw.
All of a sudden, there's a construction site. And I said, my room when I was right there. And my wife was like, yeah. She goes, how do you know? I said, because I walked around right there. Now I was paralyzed, and I was in full care, crazy. And I couldn't see out the window. I couldn't tell you when I was there if it was, I'd look at a clock and it was said 12. I wouldn't know if it's 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. at all. And she's like, yeah, why? She's like, that's so weird. And then I told her a story. That was the first person I told. And that would have been, a couple months afterwards. And so literally was a construction site. They were doing an addition to the hospital. Yeah. Steel beams, plastic on the sides, mud, exactly like I remember it.
Jeez. And those stories are all very similar when you hear these stories. Yeah. How many podcasts have you listened to with those kind of stories? Yeah. And it's like, there's something to it.
Yeah.
Obviously something to it.
I really, I struggled for a long time with survivor's remorse. Again, the other driver of surviving. Yeah. And, my journey was the fact that I was given less than 3% chance. I'm here. I was, the nursing home stay was horrific. Yeah. The difference between in a hospital where they never let you alone all night.
Yep, it's constant.
Night. Yeah, in the nursing home, I moved in right before Christmas. So the staff was understaffed. The administrator wasn't there. It was going into New Year's. And so nobody was really there till after New Year's. I couldn't do anything.
You're just laying there doing nothing.
And I'm now going from taking narcotics intravenously to taking it orally, where, the amount of excruciating pain that I was in, I couldn't move my legs. I was paralyzed from the waist down. I never knew if I'd walk again, and so I would just, like, there was a bulletin board, like a pegboard beside my bed. I had a private room, and, on it was just stuff my kids, the 8 and 4-year-olds, had drew me at Christmas, because I literally moved in the day before Christmas. Ugh. And so there was a green thumbtack that would held this one photo. I can't tell you what the photo was, but I can tell you that green thumbtack, like, it's the back of my hand. I would stare at it and wait till I could get my next narcotic pill. Like, that's how I would pass. I mean, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move, so I could just look straight.
It's terrible.
I mean, I had special mattresses not to get bed.
Did you ever think at one of those times, ever, like, there's times where you would thought, man, I should have just gone.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times in that nursing home. Because again, back to the nursing home part, like the shift that came on from 11 p.m. till 6 a.m., that nurse and that nurse aide would check in on me at 11, say, hey, I'm here. If you need anything, hit the buzzer. Otherwise, I wouldn't see them again until 6 a.m. when they were there to get me ready and the new shift to come over and again, just check on me, right? Sure. So, I always say nighttime is scary if you're 4 or 94, right? We all have,
of course it is.
We wake up and have the
nobody wants to be in the dark.
Yeah, we wake up and have the stupidest thoughts because we can't sleep in the middle of the night.
Yep.
And then, and then it keeps you occupied for 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the night. And then it's, then the morning when you wake up, you're like, why the hell was I so obsessed with this thing in the middle of the night? It's no big deal.
Yes.
And that's how I lived my life, and just an excruciating.
And you are still on narcotics at the time.
Yeah.
So your brain, your brain is, it's taking away pain, the narcotics. So a certain amount of that kind of gets used up with pain, but there's still a certain amount that stays there that messes with your brain too.
Yeah. I mean, the sheer amount of, by that point I'd already had 17 surgeries just to keep me alive. And before I got to the nursing home, and then I had 2 more like procedure related stuff while I was there. My bladder was damaged. And so it was like a lot of this ongoing, like, okay, well, we're going to go poke and prod you again with this. Yeah. Oh, we're going to, take out these stitches now today. It's like, it was a constant, serve your time, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
so when was there this point, there has to be a point where you're like, all right, I'm going to be okay. Or if things are getting better, you see some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, obviously when you see your kids, that's a big thing. It gives you that will to live even more. Yeah. But was there a point where you're like, damn it, it's going to be okay. And I'm going to get past this. Yeah.
Again, the nursing home was just such a pivotal point because my kids, probably rightfully so, my parents and my wife and my brother were making all my decisions. I didn't have any, nor should I have been. But, my kids never saw me till Christmas Eve. When I moved to the nursing home. Oh. So the first time I saw them, my son was still in a wheelchair because his leg was broken, his collarbone was broken. Yes. And so, little 4-year-old.
That'd be tough.
He was cast up to his groin. It probably weighed more than he did at the time. Right?
I saw a picture of it. Yeah, that was like some serious cast.
Yeah. I mean, and so in the nursing home was just this transition to, okay, I'm paralyzed. In that 10-week period of time that I spent, not able to go to rehab and in the nursing home, I eventually was able to start to move my right leg. Could not move my left leg at all. All that energy traveled on my left leg. When my pelvis was shattered, my back, everything was on the left side. So even though I had to be laying on my back, they'd come in and use like a plastic slide board and allow me to move my legs and try to get me. They'd move my left leg so I wouldn't get atrophy in it. And so, there was a point where the realization came that, I was maybe in a wheelchair the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And, as a guy who was a marathon runner, and I ran track in college, and it'd been part of my life, to be a runner and an active person. And so my first thought was, I'm not going to let anybody push me in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So I had railings on the side of my bed because that's the only way I could rotate for they could change my sheets or, put a bedpan.
Yeah.
I always say,
they have those rail. I know what you mean. Yeah.
I always had this. I always jokingly say sponge baths are overrated. Yeah. They're not as good.
They're not as good as you think they are.
Guys, you think.
Well, typically it's not in a hospital. Just so I don't know. Maybe if you're home or something. I don't know. Maybe Hershey, the spa. Maybe that could be a place for it.
That was not the sponge baths I was getting at all, and so nicked up that sometimes just somebody touching my arm hurt. Just rubbing my fingers across it, and so when I kind of came to that conclusion that I might be in a wheelchair the rest of my life, I had the therapists tie stretchy bands to the side of my rails, and I would just pull on those things with my arms to keep so when I got out of nursing home, I was 155 pounds.
Wow.
I spent.
And you're 6'1".
Yeah, 6'2", and I started losing. I was down to nothing. But
your legs weren't doing anything.
Yeah, I was trying to keep as much muscle because again, this idea that my kids would be the ones who were going to be pushing me around in a wheelchair was just a lot more than I was able to process. I could deal with a lot of things.
Yeah.
But when I kind of made the turn, I think, or the most, biggest jump forward was probably, I'd said I struggled with a little survivor's remorse. I'd talked to therapists, didn't find any value in it at the time. Today I can say yes, but back then it didn't. I grew up at a time when people just pull your bootstraps up and go back at it. And I talked to priests and I talked to pastors. Lots of people that I would consider, mentors or people who, I would look to for guidance, business wise or otherwise. Right. And I had I was running a real estate team then, even a small one, and I had an assistant, and her husband was a Presbyterian pastor. And when I moved to the nursing home, I moved back to Carlisle because I was not going to be able to do anything. So I wanted to be close to family and not have family travel as far. And so he would come in and visit with me all the time. And when I got out of the nursing home, his wife would sometimes bring me over to their house so I could do some work. I was doing a wheelchair. And so Pastor Jeff one day in breakfast said, having some coffee with him. He said, "How you doing?" I said, "Just don't know why I'm here."
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to deal with why did I survive? The other guy didn't. Why, he lost there's now a 19-year-old who's never known their dad ever in their life because he was just a couple months old. And he's like, well, maybe just survive so your kids would have a dad. And of all the things people were telling me,
something very simple.
That was legitimately a reason that I could wrap my head around. Right?
Best reason. Yeah.
So, when I'm kind of coming to terms with that, I also started to come to terms with the fact that I would tell people in the nursing home, oh, next year I'm going to run again. I'm going to run again. And, nobody believed that I would ever run again, but nobody was willing to say, you're crazy.
Right.
So they just kind of played along with it. Right.
And, I think anybody runs a marathon, whether you're in an accident or not, is crazy. Yeah, so you know, just want to put that out there.
Well, I talk a lot about that learning. Later on we'll talk how you fall in love with the process of things. And nobody ever sets out to run a marathon. Everyone says, let me try to run a mile.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And then you end up there, right?
Yep.
But what I started to understand is, everybody kind of looks at me differently. Everybody treats me differently. That was for sure. A lot of people didn't know how to approach me in a wheelchair or me paralyzed in a bed. And I started to realize I have a kind of a clean slate.
Yeah.
I have to deal with all this shit that's going on, and it's not going to get, it's not turned out that it was never going to get better. But the reality was no one's going to push back on me if I say, this is who I am now.
Absolutely.
Or this is what I want to do now. And so when I stopped trying to get my old life back, and just realized that it was never going to be what that was. And that, I could kind of reinvent how I wanted to take things on. I can say when I could finally get, out and about, I never missed one of my kids' soccer games ever again. Again, we're realtors. We have a little bit of flexibility. That was a time block. This became a time block. My son played competitive golf and was the top junior player. And I never missed the matches. I just time blocked them in because that became
priority.
Yeah. And when, life got turned upside down, I had family. I had good advocates, which is a huge part because financially this is a huge situation as well.
Very huge.
We had a good support group. While I was, to put some real estate back on this, while I was in the nursing home, this is now into 08 because it's just January.
Oh, 08 was not a good time in real estate.
No, it was the crash of the stock market. I jokingly say I was in a coma when the stock market crashed.
Yeah, I wish I would have been.
Yeah, trust me.
Just kidding. Not trying to make light.
No, I get it. I get it. But what I sold 3 houses in that 10 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
2 to nurse aides and 1 to a nurse.
Oh, good for you. You're still selling while you're in the nursing home. I love it.
I had to pay some bills. But no, this is still...
Nobody wanted to get in the car with you, just so you know.
This is still 5-part forms. So I'm writing these on my checks.
Oh, yes.
Now, the KW office I'm with now purchased the KW franchise. Before that was Hook and Ekman. It was a small...
okay.
So this is Dave Hook, if you know Dave, and a big agent team. And so they were there. We were just 8 or 9 of us at the time. And so they took out the nurses and their families and shoved them in the houses. I wrote these offers.
You wrote the offers?
I guarantee you they rewrote them.
I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah, they're like, we're going to make him think he wrote the offers, and we're going to just do it ourselves again. We're going to clean it up a little bit.
I'm sure I could do this. Let me do it. It was just...
He was being sponge bathed at the time, and it just wasn't working out well.
I think it's probably one of the nurses or aides I sold to.
No, that's funny. That's funny.
But
so
go ahead.
So I have this book here.
Yeah.
From all of that, from all that you went through, what made you? How did this come about?
So, because of my journey. Now, one of the parts that we have to kind of jump to real quick is
go ahead.
About 2 years after the accident, I'm now able to move around with a cane. If I have to go any distance, I have to get on a wheelchair. Like if you needed to move me into a stadium, or you needed to...
Gotcha. You're using a wheelchair.
Yeah,
to get around that much.
I have to get in a wheelchair if I have to cover some distance.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting in my home office, which we built onto the house just for the purpose of working from home as a real estate agent. And my now daughter, who's 10, is out in the front yard juggling a soccer ball. I said she's a huge soccer player, ended up being a very good soccer player. And I look up and she's not there anymore. It's after school, and all of a sudden I hear the front door open, and she walks in my office and she's crying, and I'm just assumed she hurts herself, right? So I call her over and I told her to sit in my lap, and I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "I miss my old daddy."
Oh, gosh.
I miss the one who would come out and train with me.
that's hard.
Yeah. And I thought, I'd have people say, you should just be happy you can walk with a walker now, or you should just be happy that you can move. I had to go through having my abdominals reattached, and what turned out to be my organs shut down because they were so used to being out there. So I had just been through that, and I just thought I was doing a good job.
Yeah.
And she quickly pointed out in a nice
way.
You're not. So the next day I go to my outpatient rehab, which I'm doing 3 days a week. And I go in at 9:45, and it's 10 o'clock when I'm supposed to be there. And I tell my therapist that I quit. And I said, I was a college athlete. I was All-American in Division III. I could run marathons before this happened. I could lift a lot of weight. I'll push myself harder than anybody else is willing to push me. And I walk out of this rehab in Carlisle, drive down the street just a few miles to my local YMCA where I used to work out before the accident. And I walk in at 10 a.m. and coincidentally, United Cerebral Palsy, UCP, it has a program they partner with the YMCA with teens with Down syndrome.
Oh my goodness.
And I just get up to this first circuit machine thinking I'm just going to go through, and I'm using, at that point I'm using a walker because I had to get in from the car. And this young man with Down syndrome's on there, and he's doing the press machine, and he gets up, and I go slide into it, and I go to just push without looking. And I can't even budge the damn thing. This kid, significant. I just reach out,
stronger,
move that pin like 5 plates up. I go to the next machine and I don't even bother. I just start raising the pin.
Yeah.
I get through 4 or 5 of these. And I'm like, this sucks. I'm not going to do this. So I go on the elliptical bicycle, and it's a recumbent bike. So it's like what I used to use in therapy. The pedals are kind of in front of you. I get in that thing and I set it like at a 2, and I start pedaling, and sitting beside me is a young woman with Down syndrome. And, I'm a couple minutes in, and I look over, and she set it an 8. She's got 35 minutes in on this damn thing. I'm dying, and I'm 2 or 3 minutes in. I'm like, this sucks even more.
Right.
And so I go home, and I'm just like, this just didn't go well.
Yeah.
And so I call my wife, and I said, look, I quit rehab today. I didn't tell her I was going to do it. And she said, you did? And I said, yeah. And I went to the Y, and there was a UCP program with these kids with Down syndrome, and they were all stronger than me, and this sucks. So I hate the whole thing. She said, don't forget to get the kids at 2:20 when they get out of school. I'm like, got it.
Got it.
Running a family, right?
Yeah, of course.
And
that doesn't stop.
And so I'm living in chronic pain at this point. I'm taking 90 milligrams of morphine twice a day.
Oh
to
my
function
gosh.
and driving a car. But I had built up that much tolerance.
That's what happened. I was going to say, it's totally different
This
than
is
just
before
taking
the
morphine.
epidemic.
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
before the epidemic as well. So they weren't trying to cut me off of any of it. And so I'm dealing all the time at night in a lot of pain. I sleep on a bed that's like a massage mattress. It's just hard as can be because everything hurts. And I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and my shoulders are freaking killing me. And I'm like, I look at my wife. I'm like, my shoulders are killing me. She's like, okay. And I'm like, no, they really hurt. And she's like, okay. I said, this is the first time in over 2 years I woke up and the first thing I didn't think is my back is killing me. My legs are killing me.
Was it from the lifting?
Yeah, it was from the lifting.
Yeah.
And
the muscles rebuilding.
Yeah. And I now started for the next year, 3 days a week, working out with this guy, kid Danny, with Down syndrome.
Unbelievable.
Based off the theory that there was pain I couldn't control, and then there was pain I can control. So like you look at me today at 54, I still bench over 325 pounds.
That's unbelievable.
I still squat like 450.
It's crazy.
And it's just only because it's like anything else, right? It's like, how do you become a marathon runner? You run a mile.
That's exactly right.
How do you become a guy who can bench that? You just keep doing it. And the more I had to push myself to make it hurt, the more I would push myself.
But it's a different hurt. Yeah. That's what's interesting about it.
It's the pain. Yeah. So from a
and there's results from that pain.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of results from the other pain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, there's results. It's interesting.
So the book came out of me doing those things. So because I was doing it at the local YMCA and because I was working with teens with Down syndrome through UCP, all that the regional magazines and newspapers would always want to write articles because it was great publicity for the Y. It was great publicity for UCP. It was, and then all of a sudden, this is 15 years ago, 14 years ago now, magazines were still a big thing.
Yeah.
So People magazine saw it and wrote a little article about me.
Oh, that's
cool. And then Men's Fitness magazine reached out and they ended up doing this big feature piece about my story and my journey. Those things kind of sprang me into having other people say, oh, we'd love you to speak for our organization. Now we're in like 13, 14 financial world is shot.
Yeah.
I became like the keynote speaker at conferences for financial, like Morgan Stanley, Goldman, Edward Jones.
And was that with the book or
That's
no?
without the book.
Without the book.
Yeah. No book exists. And they're just wanting me to come because everything sucked.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was a 2-day event, right? And all they heard was bad numbers about their financial world. And on the last keynote breakfast, I was the speaker. And I think the point was everybody in that room.
Let's get the guy out who has it much worse than us to come up and tell us how great it is.
Yeah. The guy who was just leaving a swim meet with his family, which everybody in that room who had kids did the exact same thing.
Well, that hits home. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, well, I guess it could be worse, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, look what he's doing. Look at us bitching. And this guy, at that point, I'm now getting sponsored by Spartan to do Spartan obstacle races because I couldn't run anymore, but I could walk.
Right.
And I was strong, so I could do the 12 obstacles. I'd come up here and do Blue Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Climb, I can remember,
you could crawl through cow shit and get shocked by electrical cords and things.
One of the hardest things was carrying a 50-pound bag of sand up a black double diamond hill that had no snow on it. Just carrying that thing up there. But because of that, they started wanting to sponsor me because, and Reebok had just taken an investment in them. So they wanted me to be that person that, again, in the email newsletters and stuff, hey, he can do it. Come out and do it with John.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
I'd get like 15, 20 people were doing the very first ones.
Yeah.
And I'd communicate via emails or in newsletters that they would do. And we'd go do them together. And then that put me on Good Morning America on Times Square demonstrating.
I'll have to look that up. I didn't see that when I was looking things up. That's cool.
These obstacles. And
very cool.
Yeah, so it was big. And so that's when the book came, the first book deal. And so that book's a 2-part book. And the first part is really this journey from what happened in the very beginning to right up to doing all the speaking and so it's a memoir. It's a memoir of my journey through that stage. Then we were talking a little bit off mic earlier. I kind of was getting a lot of speaking. I had spoken on, at an event where Magic Johnson was speaking with us. It was just, It was getting to be pretty cool. And then my best friend, the guy that's the godfather of my children and who was literally the one who drove my my wife over to Hershey Hospital when I came out of a coma because she had a broken hand and broken foot, and who would later sit with me constantly in the nursing home, committed suicide.
Unbelievable.
In August. And it was the most pissed off I have probably ever been in my entire life. To be honest, it took me a long time to understand, and today, much different.
Yeah.
But back then, I was just like, you got to be kidding me. This is the guy who pushed me constantly. The guy who took me to the gym when I probably couldn't, shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Just constantly pushing me, constantly making sure my family was okay.
And then gave up on himself.
Now, he had mental illness that he hid very well. He was manic depressant. And when he was manic, incredible guy. He was in the orchard business, and it was August. So it wasn't uncommon for us not to communicate a ton, or him not to show up for family events because it was harvest season and he worked a ton of hours at that time. But when that happened, I literally quit my entire fourth quarter speaking. And I just really struggled to figure out where, again, I felt like I had a message. I was checking myself a lot to make sure my motivation was for the right reasons. Yeah. And as I was getting more celebrity before social media was a huge thing, I just quit and said, I can't do this. And so I let that happen for a long period of time. I would speak for Hershey Medical Center when they needed something. If the UCP or the Y needed something, I would still go down the water, read and see soldier. Like there were things I still believed in that I felt the rehab centers could still call me and say, there's a guy who's going through, like young guy.
I would think that would be pretty amazing to have you go in and speak to people that are going through these things.
But I didn't want to speak on big stages and events anymore because I felt like, one, I couldn't tell the whole story. I couldn't. And so I just didn't even have to explain why I quit. I just focused on the real estate team. I started a construction remodeling company and just said, you know what? This is my story. People can hear it if they want to, but I'm done kind of telling it. And so my youngest, James, the 4-year-old, is about to graduate from Villanova. And so I over the last couple of years started saying, you know what? I would coach on my teams. Yeah. And I would give, that level of coaching. I had coaching clients, some CEOs and some other companies that I was working with, just again, dealing with adversity, right? How do you take your adversities, whether they're relationship driven, health driven, company business driven,
Yours was not planned.
Yeah, no, but those are the two types of there's the, I had this happen over time. Yep. I let this happen over time. The relationship broke down. My health got worse. The company started going the wrong direction. Sales numbers went the wrong way. And then there's something like the car accident. Yeah. It just flips it over, and it's just your life's changed instantaneously, right? And it doesn't really matter. But slowly I'm like, you know what? The people that I was coaching, my team, at one point I had up to 15 agents and on a team that I sold because I had having health issues. I kept having surgeries and that. Do you have
recurring health issues because of you do?
Yeah. So the last 14 surgeries that I've had, doctors would tell you you're having this problem because you survived. You shouldn't have survived.
Oh, interesting. You
should have never survived. I ended up getting a hole in my heart that again, at the time I was the only person known in the United States with a hole between your right and left ventricle. Now we know it was from the reverberation. It killed the tissue over time. But they're like, you should have died from about 12 other things before this ever happened.
Right.
I have all these vein issues from scarring. I've been as high as 85% chance of losing my left leg, which was the more damaged one. I walked in here today, and the only reason I walk is I can't feel any of my left leg. It's like it's asleep, like pins and needles constantly. Wow. I can feel my big toe, which if you ever see somebody who's diabetic or if somebody gets frostbite, they always try to save the big toe.
It's the balanced toe. Actually, it's the pinky and the big. My grandmother was diabetic, and when they took her toes, because she had gangrene, they took this whole thing. They left her big toe and her little one. Yeah. And they said those two are for balance, are very important.
Yeah. So I can only walk because that part of my back that was damaged and this in the spine, it's different. It's a different pathway down to my big toe. And so, as I'm trying to figure out this, workout, balance, life, I just keep having more problems. And so today, I'm stented from the folds in my legs up to my kidneys through my femoral veins, 100% stents like you would have for like
to keep the vessels open.
Yeah, because the scar tissue just keeps closing them. And so, I would get, I threw so many clots from all these surgeries that all the flaps would have been damaged again, like a diabetic would have.
Yeah.
And so, we just really started searching out doctors, and there were only 2 doctors back then who could do these types of procedures. One was a Walter Reed.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately soldiers getting blown up have the same damage that I have below the waist, and a doctor at UNC in Chapel Hill. And through my wound doctors up here, because part of the problem with the circulatory problems and why my leg looks purple, like I showed you earlier, is because ulcers open up from the skin breaking down from all the swelling, because the body can't get the blood circulating back out again. And that's why you'll see diabetics with big swollen ankles.
Yep, I've seen it.
Yeah. And so my wound doctor was trying to keep these wounds from going bad and turning gangrene and having me lose my leg. Was at a conference and saw this doctor, Dr. Marston, saved my leg. And he said no at first. And my doctor, my wound doctor, became such an advocate for me that I saw him 2 months later at another conference, and this time had my file with him. I just handed it to him and said, "Can you just look at it?" And he agreed to, and I agreed to be driven down to UNC in Chapel Hill, 6-hour drive because I couldn't fly, because of the procedures. And sure enough, he looked at a bunch of stuff, ran a bunch of tests, and I think I can fix you with some experimental stuff we're doing.
Awesome.
And he ended up he's done 11 surgeries on me. And
this is for your legs, or this is
legs, 100%. So they're all the damage, because my whole chest cavity was all damaged, and so the femoral vein, so arteries, like every bypasses and all the blocked arteries are pretty simple. They say that's like plumbing. You have like 5 times as many veins in your body, and nobody can really do it. So it's sort of a new thing in the last 15, 20 years that you can do any type of this stuff. And again, it's diabetics and fortunately soldiers having these injuries. And so, they've been putting these things in me because I didn't die. Again, it's just sort of
it is wild. It's interesting how the reason, because you survived, you're actually having more issues because of that.
Yeah. It was only recently, like in the last few years, that literally a doctor said that to me. I was like, all right, I feel better. I mean, it makes sense. Like the alternative is being dead.
Yeah.
So having these ongoing maintenance, if you will, types of procedures, plus I'm now 54. So there's, I get
things change because of that too.
I get to blame everything on the accident.
I can't blame any of that on there.
Never mind my rotator cuff hurts.
The accident. It's the accident. Everything's the accident. That's funny. Accident. So then let's get on. I want to get into this book because we're going to have, we could be here all night. I can tell you right now, we could be here all night telling stories.
What's the name of that book?
The Upside of Down. And I love the idea of it. I love the name of it. And I love the arrow that goes up through there, which obviously was on purpose.
Yeah.
And it says, A Survivor's Guide to Turning Setbacks into Success. Yeah. So tell me, what has this done? And what goes on? I haven't read it yet. And you're going to be doing audio of this, you said too, which is
an audio book out now.
It's out now. Yeah. Is that on Amazon? Where do we get that?
Yes, Audible,
awesome.
or Apple's.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about this. Like what's in here? What are the lessons that you've learned that you can now share with everybody if they've either gone through what you've gone through or just other things that we all go through?
Yeah. So about a little over 2.5 years ago, coming up, I just decided I would re-embrace at least speaking.
Thank God.
I started working with some consulting people for speaking, a group called Brand Builders. You might be familiar with them as well. Yep. Rory and AJ are incredible. And so I got partnered up with this podcaster. His name's Matt Labrie. Decoding Success is his, and he works with Brand Builders as well. And so we just started like saying, okay, well, he knew my stories. I was still speaking a lot and on other platforms, and he'd be like, all right, but what are the lessons?
Yeah.
I hear you speak and I hear you do, and you talk about adversity and you talk about these, but let's just start putting them down. And we ended up at 12, and he said, 12's a lot. And so we just started, okay, well, make a story from your journey. And these were all things that I was doing, but it's a perfect example of like, in the business world or in your personal life, when you name it, you start to own it, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so we started building these pillars, first one being commitment. The second one being source of your problem. The third being written plan. Like we go through these now 8 pillars, and they're in the book. They're the second part of this book. And they're really just a framework to take, an adversity. And, the name of the book is, Setbacks into Success. But what we've developed more over since I started writing that book is to really turn them into fuel. Success is a relative thing, but when we have a setback, if you can turn that setback into a fuel propels you, right? Fuel is what moves something forward. Yeah. So, ultimately that's the goal. How do we take this setback and how do we move it forward?
It's funny that you say that, because I just said something recently. I'm working on a book, but was winning gives you the energy to fail again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of the same thing. Like when you win, you get the energy to fail, because when you fail, you learn. Yeah. Because everybody used to talk bad about failure, but we're all finding out that failure is the best thing in the world. Yeah. Because we wouldn't learn it without it. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to go forward. Yeah, exactly. So I love it. I love the whole concept.
Yeah. So so the 8 pillars, the one I probably speak on the most, and the one that I think is crucial is the 7th pillar, which is falling in love with the process. And it goes back to my time with Danny and the other UCP special needs. They just were there and loved what they're doing. And when my time there taught me anything. If you've ever spent any time with people with Down syndrome, they're the most positive human beings you've ever been around.
Yes, they are.
And which is who I needed.
Smiling usually all the time.
Yeah, who I needed to be around at that time. I didn't want to be around my peers. I didn't want to be judged for where I was. It was a judgment-free place with lots of positive energy.
I love that.
And what I've started to learn is Danny was strong as a freaking bull.
Yeah.
Strong. Yeah, but it didn't.
He loved the process.
It wasn't his reason. He just loved to be there. And he would be sad. He would be upset when he had to go and all his friends had to go. And he'd be like, "See you on Wednesday, John." I'm like, "See you Wednesday, Danny."
That's funny.
And then he'd bear hug me most of the time.
Yep.
But that falling in love with the process became a real eye-opening experience that I get now the benefit of, like talking to a lot of people, like college Division III athletes, people in going into high school and into jobs where, like, if you love what you do, like I can tell you, I'm working now to start to talk to some professional athletes, and you'll never meet a professional athlete who didn't love practice. They don't exist. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so, that's they love the locker room. They love practice. They love working when no one else is watching them. When you talk about Division III athletes now at college level, now you're really talking about somebody who's committed to a sport since they were 8 years old, maybe 6 years old, and they're about to graduate doing something that they've never been paid to do and have, put in extra off-season work and done all these things. And I always tell them, like, you know what? One, you go find a job that's like your sport. You'll never work a day in your life.
Absolutely.
And 2, you're built for failure.
Yep.
Like you're built for setbacks and for redoing it again. Nobody wins a championship on the first day of practice.
Yep.
Like you're built for the long.
Speaking of championships being won, who was in that seat just a little bit ago? Yeah. Chris Jenkins.
Really?
Yeah, he was here. Biggest, tallest. No, you know what? He was the tallest guy ever in the studio.
That's right.
Yeah, he was the tallest guy ever in the studio. You're 6'2", right? He was 6'6". Yeah. No, he was just sitting here. We just interviewed.
Not the tallest guy in the studio?
Hugo.
Hugo's not the tallest.
Close to that.
That's right.
Hey, I'm not that much taller than Hugo, man.
Did you go get a photo with him?
Yeah. Oh, we have a photo right here with him.
Nice.
You'll see it. It's coming up. Yeah. But that's funny. But yeah, I get it. And it was interesting, when you talk about that, he talked about, how much he had practiced and how much he had done from the time he was 8 years old, playing basketball in his driveway with his mom, and that he had done it thousands and tens of thousands of times. Yeah. So when he went to do that shot, he knew in his mind. What was the question that Scott Teller asked him? Scott said, "Did you know it was going in when it left your hands?" And he said, "Absolutely." Yeah. So he said because he knew everything was right in what he was doing, and then of course, swoosh.
Yeah, saw it
was cool.
10 million times over. So yeah. But again, that's the other part that is sort of why we're looking now and having conversations with professionals, because the truth is they're going to get out of their sport, even if they have the longest career ever.
Doesn't matter.
Even Tom Brady eventually,
in his got to do something
40s,
else.
had to leave.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not.
I think he's pretty set financially, though. I'm pretty sure he's pretty
good. But he probably doesn't know what the hell. He had to find something to do with himself.
Yeah,
there's a reason he's back on television.
Of course, you have to
in the game, and so I think it's also a lot of that. Like, there's just this whole mentality built around finish line.
Yeah.
And I'm much more about taking wins. And I just look around here and I would say that, your wall is full of trophies. And
these are all kinds of people that were in here.
Yeah. Or they would all be related to something that will be a memory for you.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
I'm still about taking wins, and we're in an industry that we're all going through awards coming up if we haven't already done it. And I always tell people, look, that's the biggest challenge in the world, because now you have to go, how do I repeat it? But if you just keep moving the finish line and you don't make the goalposts or the finish line be the stopping point, and you just keep pushing it.
Yeah.
And then you take the win, but you don't look at it as like, I just finished something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. There's a couple things in here I wanted to bring up that I thought was from quotes and stuff that I saw, and then we're going to wrap it up. I love this. If you're avoiding hard things, you're missing an opportunity to grow. That was a quote that you had on your Instagram. Absolutely love it. But the one thing that I was thinking of that was really interesting to me after now hearing it again, your story, and that I realized is, I wonder how many people are not walking today that are in wheelchairs because they listen to the doctor.
Yeah.
That is actually very, very depressing in a way, but it also makes us realize that, and hopefully this show is going to show anybody that is in a wheelchair. I just had an injury, and reading your book, that you can't always listen to the professionals or the experts in that industry or in what they're doing, because it's actually sad, because they told you wouldn't walk again.
Yeah.
Imagine if you would have listened to them.
Yeah. So,
you know what I'm saying? That's terrible.
So
and that's people that are supposed to know what they're doing.
Well, I fired doctors. I mean, I fired a lot of doctors, and a lot of times, so like Dr. Marston, the doctor down at UNC who's put the stents in, when I finally got the meet with him, he said, I don't have anybody else like you, but I'm interested in what you can do.
Cool.
That's all I needed to hear. Yeah, right. I needed somebody to say, like, I don't know what you can do this or not, but I'm interested. It'll be an interesting journey, and I'll
and there's no guarantees.
And I'll benefit from whatever happens with you, because I'm at a teaching hospital. I'm the leader in this area of veins, and so whatever you do, like I said, this, what you might have heard is I went to an appointment with a cardiologist who told me I should be happy that I was just alive. And when I went to one of those appointments, I got dropped off about a mile away and jogged in and
I did read
stood
that.
up all sweaty. And he's like, "What happened to you?" And I said, "I jogged here." He said, "You jogged here?" I said, "Yeah, a mile." And I'm getting a new cardiologist. Again,
that's great. Good for you.
But that's, advocacy, it goes two ways, right? Like having mentors and having people who advocate on your behalf or one thing, but then having what I call a board of directors. It's the easiest way, I think, for men particularly to take help. Is to have a mentor, or in my case, I needed a couple, because I needed medical, I needed spiritual, I needed a lot of mentoring besides real estate at the time. And so, I called it my board of directors. Yeah. And one of the things I think is critical that I learned is, look, it's one thing for like you to tell me today, hey, if you ever had this, issue, John, with something, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to help you with something going on for the transaction or anything. It's very different for me to say, hey, Brad, you know what? When it comes to real estate, I try to build this like board of directors and just people that I can count on. I don't expect you to get back to me immediately if I text you, but are you open to being that person for me as it relates to real estate? Now we made a connection. Now when I do text you, you're going to feel a little bit obligated to respond back to me. So I built my doctors, and I've built numerous people that I've had to ask them, and nobody said no, by the way. But now when I do text them, they might not get back to me for a day, but they're going to get back to me because I already kind of, I didn't make an assumption, or they didn't say, hey, if you ever need anything, let me know. I literally said to them, this is what it is. It's made up of, people and what they do that's relatable to my journey. And I'd like you to be that person when it comes to dealing with this. I don't plan on having to use you a lot, but if I do, can I count on you to
be on your side?
Be on my side, be an advocate.
It's cool.
And and it made a huge difference in just building that.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about, or that you want to say? Because there was so much stuff in here. There's so much stuff. Where do we get the book? How do we get the book?
The Upside and Down is available on all the online normal Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, all the normal places. It's well published book.
And it's for anybody. It's not just,
really
I mean, it's for anybody. It's for business. It's for, trauma. It's for anything that you can think of that you're facing in life.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a lot of like, okay, let's find the source of the problem. I'm very much about being purposeful more than perfect. Like I would rather have every person, take something that's going on, purposefully make a first step.
Yeah.
Because life is just a bunch of first steps, right? Like
Absolutely.
Every day is another first step. We just
Absolutely.
decide how we're going to go about it.
Very cool. Well, thanks for coming in, man. Thanks for the book.
Thanks for having me.
You guys got to pick up a copy of this. That is just an incredible story. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right. There you have it. John Ulsh. You got to pick up this book. The Upside of Down. It's just amazing. The story's incredible. I think you'll probably listen to this podcast a couple times and get a lot of things out of it. But get the book or listen to the audio on Audible and other places. That's about it. Thanks for stopping by this Thursday at 7 p.m. like every other week. We'll see you next week. All right. Hi, this is Brad Weisman. Come back here every Thursday at 7 p.m. to watch The Brad Weisman Show. We have new guests every single week, and we love having you as an audience. All right, we'll see you soon.